I'm going to talk to you a little bit like a dad today. I'm going to tell you some things that you might expect to hear from a pastor. And I'm going to tell you some things you might not want to hear. One of those things is this. Most of you in this room work too hard, and you need to stop it. The first Labor Day weekend was officially celebrated. Anybody know what year? You're exactly right. 1894. You guys are so smart. That was amazing that you guys knew that. So the first Labor Day celebration, it was back in 1894, and it was a day to celebrate the laborer. You. It was a day to celebrate the hard work and the efforts of the laborer. And I think through the course of the decades, we in our American culture especially have forgotten the meaning of Labor Day. We've kind of looked at Labor Day. It's the 3-day weekend. We get a long weekend. You guys are here this weekend. I'm so proud of you. Not only is it the 3-day weekend, it's kind of the unofficial end of summer. To ladies that are really into fashion, you don't wear white anymore after Labor Day, right? You only wear white between Memorial Day and Labor Day. After that, you can wear black. You never wear black during the summer. Did you know that? I'm a boy, and I know that, And here's what I know about the culture that we know, especially in the United States. Our culture is great at celebrating work, but not very good at celebrating the worker. Labor Day was set aside to celebrate the worker, but in our American culture, we celebrate the work, and we celebrate work so much, we've become lousy at rest. We're not good resters. Now, I want to tell you that there's a difference between rest and recreation. Oh, listen, Americans, we're great at recreation. We've got every kind of toy available to us for recreation. A side-by-side, a four-wheeler, a motorcycle, a camper, a boat, a television set, Disney World, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farms, Six Flags. It just goes on and on and on. We're great at recreation, but recreation is different than resting. Let me give you a little example. If you have an RV or a camper, come on. We had a camper when I was a kid growing up. It wasn't like your camper. Okay, but we had a camper, and I know what it's like when you got a camper. You get the camper ready to go, you pack the camper. After you've cleaned the camper, you hook up the camper, you tow the camper, you park the camper, you unhook the camper, you level the camper, you get the camper ready to go. And this is rest, right? And my mom hated it because while we're out gathering firewood or whatever the case might have been, she's inside cooking all of her meals and cleaning the camper. If you have a boat, let me first of all say, I feel so bad for you, but you have a boat. You know what it is to have a boat. I've talked to enough boat people that say, the happiest day of my life was the day I got my boat, and I got a great deal on my boat. Then I realized I needed to go to the store and buy everything to go in the boat, which made the boat seem cheap compared to all the stuff that went into the boat. And you got to get the boat ready, polish the boat, wax the boat, hook up the boat, haul the boat, unload the boat, get the boat. And this is rest. This is not rest. It's recreation. There's a difference between the two. And we in America are great at recreation, but we're lousy at rest. And we're not very good at rest because we think in America that rest means we are lazy. Let me ask you, you don't have to raise your hands, although I'd really like you to. How many of you do the 5-hour energy drinks? How many of you are doing the Monster energy drinks? Red Bull, Monster, whatever brand you pick. And that's your substance for the day. You get up in the morning and the first thing in your hand is that energy drink. 5-hour energy. Now I see on the shelves next to the 5-hour energy, they've got this little bottle to help you sleep. So you take 3 bottles of 5-hour energy, you take 3 bottles of that to get you through the day, and then you drink this other bottle to help you sleep. Caffeine, we kind of laud it. We even have a coffee shop right in our church here, and caffeine has become the new Christian narcotic. It just keeps us going. But people got to have the energy drink, the caffeine. I gotta have. And some people exist, it's the meth addiction. to get them through from day to day. Even Hitler in World War II gave methamphetamines to his Luftwaffe pilots so that they could fly their missions nonstop for days on end. This is nothing new. We live in a culture that says we need to give more, be more, produce more, get more, move up the ranks, get ahead. All of that, and we laud that the harder you work, you get applauded for working so hard. Let me ask you this. How do you feel physically right now? How many this morning when you said you got up, oh man, I can't move. I've got to have my cup of coffee. Because you went to bed too late, you worked too hard yesterday, and you didn't get enough rest. And let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Just think about wherever it is that you work, whatever it is, whatever job that you have right now. And think of all the sleep that you have sacrificed for that job. What has it gained you? Maybe the more important question is this: what have you lost? Your family can answer that question. Rest isn't very popular in our culture. We feel guilty when we are resting. I feel guilty when I am resting. Because when you work and you work hard, people applaud a hard worker. You marry somebody, he's a hard worker. You got a good employee. Why is he a good employee? Because he's a hard worker. And we elevate that status in the culture that we live in. Listen, your company, whomever you might work for, will take as much from you as you are willing to give. And let me just encourage you with something. There are hundreds of jobs in the city of Williston, but if you're a family person today, you only get one family. You only have one family. So I thought maybe on this Labor Day weekend it would be wise for us to just kind of step back a little bit and see what the Bible has to say about rest and how we should take care of ourselves. I mean, even in the beginning of the Bible, we know this from a very young age, that God created the earth in 6 days. And I believe he created it in 6 literal days. I don't think it was 6,000 years. I don't think it was any of that. I think it was 6 days, because the less time it takes God to create earth, the bigger my God is. In fact, I think God could have done it in 6 seconds and just kind of went, oh, we'll call it days. I don't know. But I know this, that when he got done with creation, God, the one that created all of this, rested on the 7th day. God rested. And then humanity comes along, and we want to strive to be more, get more, have more, achieve more, get more money, more stuff, more, and we'll just go. And don't take the time to rest. But God himself rested. In fact, he even wrote it into the commandments. I mean, we might be good at, hey, not committing adultery, not stealing, not coveting. We're pretty good about not keeping or not taking the Lord's name in vain. But when it comes to setting aside some rest in our life, fail. And so I thought we need to look at scriptures. And you need to understand, you can't be your best. Listen to me, you can't be your best. I'm talking to you like a dad until you get proper rest. You can't be your best until you get proper rest. Now, I'm gonna do a contrast between 2 biblical characters. One's in the Old Testament, one's in the New Testament. I'm going to talk to you about a guy named Elijah. Elijah was a prophet. A prophet was somebody who spoke on behalf of God. We see that a lot in the Old Testament. And then the New Testament figure I want to talk to you is his name is Jesus. I'm going to do a little contrast and comparison. Let's talk about Elijah first. Elijah is this amazing man. All kinds of miracles follow in his prophetic ministry to the nation of Israel. This is hundreds of years before Jesus came on the scene. While Elijah is a prophet, the king and the queen of Israel are kind of famous if you've been connected with church for any length of time. Their names are Ahab and Jezebel. Jezebel, she was a piece of work. I'm just telling you, read about this woman. She's a piece of work. She had a lot of influence. I think she ran her husband. And Ahab was a wicked man because Jezebel permitted him to. I think that's kind of the way the whole thing went. Jezebel in God's nation, Israel, is really into this thing called Baal worship. You can read it in your Bible, B-A-A-L. Now, Baal was a fertility god. It was the male version of a fertility god. The female version, her name was Asherah. And they would put up these Asherah or Baal statues, these poles, and they would sacrifice to them. And it was a culture at that time that was as morally loose as ours is today. In fact, the way you worship, because they were fertility gods, was you just had a giant orgy out in open air in front of these idols that they had erected. And that was the culture of Israel at the time. And Elijah the prophet steps in to speak to this whole culture. So he confronts the 450 prophets of Baal that were really on the payroll for Jezebel, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, which were also on the payroll for Jezebel. She brought these prophets in to promote Baal and Asherah worship in the nation of Israel. Elijah, he's had enough of this one day, and he says, you know what, listen. How long are you going to waver between two opinions? Either Baal is God or God is God. Tell you what, let's have a little powwow, a little showdown, and he gets all these 850 prophets together up on this big hill. And he says, all right, here's the deal. You guys go build an altar, put a bunch of wood on there. Let's go get 2 bulls. You can pick whichever bull you want. I mean, let's make this fair. If one's bigger, one's better looking, whatever the case is, you pick your bull. You cut it up into pieces and put it on top of that wood, and then you call upon Baal, your God, to come and just, boom, burn up that sacrifice. And you know what? If Baal steps in and burns up your sacrifice, hey, he's God. I'll worship him, not a problem. So that's exactly what they do. They cut up a bull and they put him up there on the altar on top of all this wood. And the prophets of Baal, you can read about this in 1 Kings chapter 18, 1 Kings 18. You can read about this. And so they're out there calling upon Baal. Oh, Baal, you're the Lord, you're the God. Burn up the sacrifice. Nothing. Elijah starts to taunt them about noon. Hey, you guys might have to shout a little bit louder because I think he's hard of hearing. Either that or maybe he's just resting. He might be relieving himself. Maybe he's on vacation. I don't know, but you're going to have to shout louder. So they start cutting themselves. And blood shed from the prophets, and they're dancing around and doing whatever they had to do. Nothing's going on. And finally, at the end of the day, Elijah goes, look. Obviously, nothing's going on here. Why don't we see if the God I serve is really the God of Israel? So they cut up another bull. He takes 12 stones, one to represent each tribe of Israel. They kind of put them in a pile, put wood on top. They take this bull that they've cut up, lay that on top of there, and then they dig a trench around this whole thing. And he tells these guys, hey, go get some water and pour water on that. All right, so they pour water on there, not once, not twice, but 3 times. It runs over the bull, over the wood, into the trench all around there. And then Elijah just prays a simple prayer. Oh, God, if you're God, show up and prove it. Boom! The fire of God comes down. It burns the bull, it burns the wood, and it burns the rock. It's pretty awesome. And then you know what Elijah says? He gets to some guys and he goes, kill them. Kills all 850 prophets. Elijah is at the top of his career. Everything going for him. He's been working hard for God, and this is kind of the culmination, this great, huge victory up on the top of this hill. And then as we read the story, we can see what happens in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse number 1. Read it with me. It's up on the screen. When Ahab, that's the king of Israel, he got home, he tells Jezebel, his wife, everything that Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. Well, you can imagine Jezebel was thrilled. Look at the verse number 2. Jezebel sends out a tweet. Here's what she says. May the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow, Elijah, I have not killed you just like you killed them. And you know how Elijah responds? Bring it on, girl. Come on, bring it on, bring it on. I mean, I was just up there on the top of the hill, and I just saw God, the fire of God, burn up all these things. But look how he responds in verse number 3. He was afraid, and he fled for his life. And he went to Beersheba. I know Beersheba means nothing to you. Beersheba was this little tiny town. It was an outpost at the southern borders of Israel. It was on the edge of nowhere. As Beersheba is to Israel, some of you have come to Williston, and We're on the edge of nowhere, right? But listen, I'd rather live, wouldn't you rather live on the edge of nowhere and not the middle of nowhere? I mean, if we're on the edge of nowhere, nowhere would be Montana. Okay. If you're watching online, I'm so sorry. All right. And he travels there with his servant, and then he leaves his servant there because he wants to be alone. Verse number 4 says this, then he went alone. And where did he go? He goes to a wilderness. He isolates himself from people. And traveling all day, maybe 7, 8, 10 miles, he travels all by himself. He sits down under a solitary broom tree, and look at his prayer. He prays that he might die. Lord, I've had enough. You know, could we just agree here for a moment? I think he was tired. I think he needed rest. In fact, the story bears it out. Because you know what? When you're tired, and you know this, when you are tired, you're overwhelmed more easily by circumstances. Small things are big, and big things are just overwhelming. And how many times do you hear people in conversation just talk about how tired they are and how busy they are? How tired they are, how busy they are. And as adults, we know this. Do you know how I know we know this? Because when you're a parent, you've got a 3-year-old in the house, and that 3-year-old is melting because you said no, and they throw themselves on the floor and have a tantrum. And what's the first thing we say when a child starts to cry and gets a little cranky? Oh, somebody needs a nap. And we think, hey, we're all grown up, we don't need that anymore. There's a reason I have a recliner chair behind my desk. When you're tired, how do you act when the pressure's on? And what Elijah needed the most is what we see next. Look what he does next in verse number 5. Elijah, he lays down and he slept under that broom tree. Story goes on in the rest of verse number 5. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. Elijah, you cannot live on energy drinks all day long. Elijah, you need some rest. You got to get some food. Verse number 6. He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones. I think it was those little biscuits that you get at Red Lobster. I think that's what he had there. And then he had a jar of water. And so he ate and drank, and look what he did. He laid down again. Verse 7, then the angel of the Lord, he comes again and he touches him and he said, get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you. Verse number 8, so he gets up, he drank, and and the food that was given to him was enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. Elijah at least recognized, I need to get alone and have some time with God. But not only having this spiritual time with God, he needed something physical for his body. He needed to rest, and there was a journey ahead of him. And God sets a pattern. The pattern that he sets with the angel is sleeping and eating, sleeping and eating, sleeping and eating. I think the angel that came to him that day was a grandma angel, don't you? That's a grandma angel. Oh, have something to eat, you know? The grandma angel that came, but God recognized the physical need that Elijah had. And life for you is a journey. And you've got a journey ahead of you. And listen, I'm sharing this with you today to give you permission to rest, not be lazy, but to rest. And we'll talk about it a little bit more as we keep going. You've got to take care of yourself. Rest is spiritual. Do you know why rest is spiritual? Because God ordained it and he ordered it. He put it in there. If we didn't need rest, God wouldn't have made nighttime. We need some rest. He ordains it. Now, let me tell you about a guy who got it right. His name is Jesus. Well, Jesus kind of got everything right, didn't he? Okay. But Jesus sets an example for us. In Matthew chapter 14, Jesus' cousin, another famous biblical character, his name is John. We call him John the Baptist. He was a cousin to Jesus. He's the one that comes before Jesus and prepares the way for Jesus' ministry. There's a unique connection between Jesus and John. And John, it's a whole other story. John is imprisoned and then eventually beheaded. And Jesus gets news that his cousin has been beheaded. And on that news, look how Jesus responds in Matthew 14, beginning in verse 13. As soon as Jesus heard this news, he left in a boat to a remote area. Why? To be alone. Jesus' whole life was given to people. His whole life was given to ministry. A lot like Elijah. But Jesus recognized, I need some time alone. I've got to rest. I've got to go talk to my Heavenly Father. But as Jesus heads out in the boat, crowds follow him. He gets to the other side of the lake so he can be alone. And the crowds were there. I mean, Jesus is like a rock star wherever he's going. And while he's there, now he has not gotten his alone time yet. The people surround him. The only alone time he got was in the boat. And he gets to the other side, and the crowds begin to gather around him. He ministers to them. He heals their sick. And then he, along with the disciples, with a couple of fish and some bread, feed the 5,000 men, not including the women and the children. It's a full day of work once again. It just keeps going. And after exerting so much energy over that event, what does Jesus do? Look how it reads in verse number 22, the same chapter. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted, and I love this, he insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. Come on, Peter, Matthew, John, Bartholomew, Judas. Come on, James, over here, guys. Guys, get in the boat, and I want you to go back. And I think Jesus insisted on it because they were tired too. You guys need to get away from the crowds. You need to go back to your home. You need to go back to your families. You need to regenerate. I'll take care of the people here. And so Jesus sends all of the people on their way. And then look at what happens in verse 23. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Here's what I know about Jesus. He's 100% God and he's 100% man. And if this Jesus, who is 100% man and 100% God, needed time alone to rest, what makes you and I think we don't need to do that? You can't give your best until you get proper rest. And you know who knows that? Your family does. Because listen, your kids are home. They kind of know what time you're going to roll through the doors, mom or dad. And you come through the door, you're moody, you're grumpy, you're crabby. You've got no time with the kids. Your husband walks through the door, sits down on the couch. Oh, that's quality time, isn't it? Mom comes home, supper's not ready, it's piranha hour. The kids have come home from school, they're famished, they're starving, they're hungry. Mom, where's this? Mom, they did that. Mom, they touched me, and you're there trying to get supper ready, and you're just frantic and the whole thing, and all you're doing is barking at the kids. And your kids run to the bedroom and wish you'd get hit by a bus. Let me ask you something. Just seriously think about this. When's the last time in your life you had no noise? Nothing plugged into your ears, nothing before your eyes. Just quiet. When was the last time you were intentional about that? We become so accustomed to the sounds and the noises around us, we just assume that's normal and that's the way things are. Robin and I, when we got to our bed and breakfast last weekend, the bride and groom put us up in this bed and breakfast. We were convinced that our GPS was lying to us. You ever had a GPS do that? I mean, GPS typed in the address, like, you're a liar, you know. You're taking us down all these gravel roads. You're a liar. But then we saw the sign for our bed and breakfast, and we knew that we were getting close, but it still didn't feel like we were close. And we finally pulled up to this little log cabin in the middle of the woods, and we get out of the car and we shut the doors. Nothing. The silence was deafening and therapeutic and amazing. When's the last time you had no noise? Let me ask you this. When's the last time you had really honestly, a good night's sleep? 7 hours, 8 hours. I'm talking to adults here now. Teenagers, yesterday was 13, 14 hours. I just know how that goes. Let me just ask you, when's the last time you just sat quietly and just thought? Took time to think. The last time you simply sat and just rested. I can probably answer that for you. It's probably been too long. And the reason is because if you sit down and do nothing, you, like me, feel guilty. Because the culture that we live in doesn't applaud rest, it applauds work. Listen to what the Mental Health Foundation and Sleep Matters survey says. They found that sleep-deprived people are more likely to have relationship difficulties. That's kind of a no-brainer. Experience low mood, lack of concentration, suffer from health problems. The survey, which has prompted a major awareness campaign, found that sleep disorders can put sufferers at significantly greater risk of depression, anxiety, immune deficiency, and heart disease. Why are you sick all the time? Why are the kids sick all the time? How much rest have you given this body of yours? How many hours of sleep did you get last night? Not hours in bed, hours sleeping. And at work, you work late, and then you stay up late, and you think you are accomplishing so much. And the boss is going to tap you on the back and applaud you and be so excited. And our society just applauds that. The reality is, since you are so tired, you are not giving your best to the company. You're not giving your best to your family. In fact, your family gets the leftovers. And what if you added up all the hours of sleep that you sacrificed for the job? Let me ask you this. How much have you gained as a result of what you lost? Your family can answer that. God ordained rest, not laziness. Oh, the Bible has a lot to say about laziness. But the Bible also has a lot to say about rest. In fact, God ordered us to rest because He knows the limitations of this body that He created. He knows the physical environments in which we live. He knows that we need rest. He just knows that we need it. And I'm here today not to make you feel guilty, but to give you permission to rest. Some of you here, you're great with diet, you're great with exercise, you're great with finances, but when it comes to rest, you're lousy. We're just not good at this. So let's just make this practical for a few minutes, and then we're going to close in prayer. Let me talk to you a little bit like a dad here for just a few moments, okay? You might be older than me, but I'm your pastor, so you're going to listen to me. You know, before you go to bed at night, stay off the computer. And then when you wake up in the morning, stay off the computer. I have a revelation for you. Facebook will still be there later, okay? It'll still be there. You're not going to die because you don't check your Facebook or your Instagram or your Snapchat status immediately before bed and immediately when you wake up. If it's gotten to the point when you're laying next to your spouse and you're texting them next to each other in bed, that's pretty bad. And it happens. Okay? Leave work at work. Just leave work at work. And then here, this is a big one. Let me just stand on my soapbox for a moment. If you're a family today, you're a family and you have children in here, would you have your meal together? Have a meal together as often as you can throughout the week. 3, 4, 5, maybe even up to 7 times. And then when you have that meal together, listen, here's what I want you to do. And if you don't do this, I'm coming to your house and I'm just telling you, when you have this meal time together, open the kitchen drawer and throw the phones in there and shut the drawer. Yeah, we've got a meal time together. I can just see 5 people sitting around the table and all of them are holding their phone, checking things and scrolling through and eating their food. That is not meal time together, people. I'm just telling you, for thousands of years, people have eaten together without a phone in their hand. It's amazing. I know that if you're under 20, your phone is an appendage. It needs to be surgically removed. I understand that. But you can have a meal together. Mom and dad say, well, I don't want to have the fight. Listen, you're the parent. Get a basket, get a bowl, get something, go around and collect all the phones and go put them in the other room, and then sit down as a family and have a meal together and find some rest. You'd be amazed what'll happen. You'll hear about your kids' day. You get to speak into their lives. You get to laugh, you get to giggle, and then maybe you'll have so much fun, you forgot where the phones were, okay? You need to fight for time for your family. I understand this because the culture that we live in loves to be busy. Listen, right now, all the stuff that I've just said to you, your spouse and your children are going, thank you, Pastor, for saying something. I understand the companies we work for. We're in the oil industry out here. We work hard. So many days on, a couple days off, that whole kind of thing. Listen, I understand work schedules. I'm not trying to make you feel bad for working. I'm trying to give you permission for resting and tell you how you can do it. Your children want that time with you. Let me tell you something else. Don't go to bed with the TV. Robin and I, in all our 30 years of marriage, have never had a TV in our bedroom. You got a TV in your bedroom? Get it out of there. But Pastor, that's how I wake up in the morning. That's how I go to bed at night. No, just get the TV out of there. You need quiet and peace and rest. Make time. And then this is what you'd expect a pastor to say. Would you make time? Make time to be with God every day. And here's why I say that's important. Because Scripture tells us those that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. You just do. You just need that time where you just shut down. Can you even just give 15 minutes? Can you spend 7 minutes in prayer? 7 minutes in the Word? And maybe even just, I know this is going to be a stretch, you can even go 7 minutes of just shut up and listen and be quiet for a little while. I want you to be a great employee. I want you to be a great employee to your boss, but I want you to be a hero to your family because you've made time for them. It's okay for you to just get away and rest. You can't be your best. You can't give your best until you get proper rest. God ordained it. God created it. God loves it. God wants you to rest, not be lazy, but to rest. And I want to give you permission to do that today.